Caught me off guard. Mr. Hartness?
I don't think we're live. Or else, yep, okay.
Say I am.
Steve is, that's fine. Present.
Mrs. Shoemaker?
Present.
Mr. Bonner?
Present.
Mrs. Corzine?
Present.
Mr. Mullins?
Present. This meeting is being broadcast and recorded by audio tape. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, everyone has a copy of their agenda. Any questions, any clarifications, Debbie and Debbie?
No.
With that, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Mr. Bonner, second by Mrs. Corzine. Roll.
Mrs. Shoemaker? Mr. Bonner? Mrs. Corzine? Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
Mr. Hartman?
Yes.
Next on the agenda is public participation. I'd like to welcome visitors to this and all board meetings. The board desires the citizens of the district to attend its meetings so that they can become better acquainted with the operations and programs of the schools and so that the board may have an opportunity to hear the wishes and ideas of the public. All meetings of the board are open to the public and the media. If anyone would like to address the board this evening, just come up here and give your name and address and let us know what. Go ahead.
You know me, but for everybody
Yeah.
who might not, my name is Brenda Southworth. I am the Philadelphia Education Association president and a 27-year teacher, loan teacher out of the city schools. So I've been around here long enough to know that I appreciate the board. I appreciate everything Debbie Swinehardt's done and the administrators to get us where we are today. I know it hasn't been easy. It's been a long summer for all of you. I appreciate that. I understand that. I think everybody here understands how difficult this situation is. I also want to just take a brief second to say thank you to all of our staff. We have the best staff, bar none. I mean, you guys have shown how caring, how dedicated, how faithful we are to our students, whether you're our teacher, a bus driver, an administrator, a custodian. Everybody has worked to make sure our kids maintain the best education as possible. Thank you. During the shutdown, they worked long hours, did Zooms at 9 o'clock at night because that was the best time for some kids, met with kids at their homes, dropped off supplies, dropped off food. This is a caring group of educators. And I mean, when I say educators, I mean everybody, because if you're in the field of education, you are in some way educating our kids, and I thank you for that. I also want to say, moving forward, though, I know that you are doing your best to be proactive and to come up with a plan that will keep education rolling for our kids. That's our goal. We're into education because we want to make sure that they are getting the education that they receive. But please know that the teachers in our district, and I imagine other staff members too, are still concerned about the safety of our kids and the safety of themselves. Okay, I know you're looking at protocols and putting them in place to keep us safe. Please continue to do so. We need shields, we need dividers, we need masks, we need smaller class sizes to socially distance. There's no way to have a full class of kids and have 6 feet distance. It's just, I can't see it happening in most classrooms. I don't know how that can happen. We know that you value education, and we always say that comes first. That's number one. But in this case, safety and well-being and maintaining the lives of everybody is number one. I don't want to have to attend one funeral for a child, for a staff member, for a friend, for a spouse of someone who's gone home, for a grandparent, for a child who went home, who picked it up at school and they were low risk, but their grandparents that they're living with were not low risk. I don't want to attend one funeral, and I know you don't either. So I'm asking you to make sure that you do everything in your power to keep our schools as safe as possible. One of the things on the agenda tonight is to adjust the calendar and to move it forward. And I understand that puts those 2 weeks, extra 2 weeks of wiggle room in there. I appreciate that. I like the fact that we have a week at Thanksgiving, 2 weeks at Christmas, a week at Easter. We have more breaks than ever to deep clean and to spread out. And then we have that 2-week wiggle room, which is awesome. What scares me is that we're starting August 10th and we don't know who's been on vacation, who just went to Texas, who just went to Arizona, who just went to Florida, who didn't socially maintain a distance. What are we bringing in so soon into our schools when we don't understand that it's safe yet? And things are changing daily. And I know the plan that you make today may change a week from now. I get that. And I know you're trying to be proactive and let parents know. We understand that. But I'm asking you to please look at the big picture too, because number one, let's keep everybody alive. Okay? Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the board? Seeing no one rushing to the stage, we'll continue on. Legislative update. Right now, the one item that has passed was House Bill 164, which actually has quite a bit of things as far as teacher licensure, third grade reading assessment, et cetera. There are some financial implications that do not impact us at all, unfortunately. No more money for us. But it is a little bit of a good start as far as some of those areas. There are about 12 or 14 more bills out there now that really detail around between the House and the Senate, between the details with COVID, some relief, financial issues, et cetera. So hopefully the House is on summer recess, but the Senate is still coming back. So hopefully some of these can get passed because they'll definitely help us moving forward. Okay, our next item is board action, reduction in force plan for the 2020-2021 school year, which unfortunately had to come about because of the initial cuts we were hit with last May. We did discuss these at our last meeting. Is there any question on these before we move forward? With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the RIFs.
I'll move that.
Motion by Mr. Bonner,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Hartmus. Roll.
Mr. Bonner? Yes. Mrs. Corzine? Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
Mr. Hartmus?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemaker?
Yes.
And hopefully we can bring those positions back soon. Our next item is approval of an easement and right-of-way with AEP on our property on Western Avenue at the Cavalier Athletic Center. This is just to give them a few feet to run some lines through there. And I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Hartmus. Roll.
Mr. Bonner? Yes. Mrs. Corzine? Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
Mr. Hartmus?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Okay, treasurer's report, Deb.
I have a bunch on here. I think this is the largest number I've had. So A through M, I'm asking the board for approval. It's a lot of year-end closing, transfers have zero balance, temporary appropriations to get into the new year. A couple contracts that I usually do this time of year. Fleet insurance, liability and fleet insurance, and gifts and donations. Anybody have any questions?
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I second.
I'll make the motion, seconded by Mrs. Shoemaker. Roll.
Mrs. Corzine? Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
Mr. Hartmus?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemaker?
Yes.
Mr. Bonner?
Anything else, Deb? Thank you very much. Superintendent's recommendations.
Okay, I'd like to request approval for A through P.
A through what?
P,
P, okay.
long one to them.
So to kind of address one of the things that Brenda talked about, the calendar change, it is something we're trying to be proactive with. You know, we're being told that there could be another, of course, who knows if it'll be a second wave or just a really expansion of the wave we have right now. So, but it could really come in a November, December timeframe. If you remember, we initially discussed the idea of not even attending class in December because of it. I know where I work at Ohio State, no one's coming back for Thanksgiving. Most colleges aren't. So I think the 2 week is important. I think, what we found out this past spring is that kids need to be in the classroom. Online education is fine, and I think we did a heck of a job with being put into the position we were put into. I thought we really brought that up very quickly, and I know we've made a lot of progress over these last couple months getting ready for the event. An event we may have to do this again at some point. But I think it's important to build that 2 weeks in so we could make sure we have kids in the classroom. I understand, Brenda, your thoughts on vacations. I don't know if 1 week difference really changes any of that. If there's a quarantine issue that the governor's put in for anyone returning from Texas or Florida or anything, well, of course, those students or staff will not be able to come to the building until the quarantine is finished. So with that, I would like to make the motion to approve the superintendent's recommendations.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Hartmus. Roll.
Mr. Bonner?
Yes.
Mrs. Corzine? Yes. Mr. Mullins?
Yes.
Mr. Hartmus?
Yes.
Mrs. Shoemaker?
Yes. We also have Rachel. She's the new third grade teacher.
Is she here?
She is here.
Well, introduce us.
Where is she? I saw her.
Where are you,
There
Rachel? Hi,
she is.
Rachel.
She's the new third grade teacher at
She's the,
Board
one,
Meets.
she's the one in the mask, Mr.
One in the
Mullins.
There you go. Okay. That's welcome.
Rachel,
to
Rachel Metcalf.
Okay. Anything else, Deb?
No, thank you though.
Okay, discussion and informational items, CCSD reopening plan, which is why everyone is here. Everyone's tuned in to your YouTube channel. There's been a lot of consideration given to this. We put a lot of work into it. I want to thank everyone for their efforts. But as we began looking at this, we looked at a lot of different scenarios, and the more we looked at it, the more it became evident that the kids need to be in the classroom, and they need to be in the classroom full time. So we will, on August the 10th, the kids will be returning to class full time. We have followed guidance from a number of groups, the Ohio Department of Health, CDC, and most recently, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Harvard School of Public Health. Harvard has put out probably the most complete reopening of school documentation of anything that we've seen. And I was really pleased after I got a hold of that and saw that we were already following most of what they were recommending. So the one thing that it came out from the American Academy of Pediatrics, they and Harvard both strongly advocated that for kids to come back to school, and that should be our goal, and that should be our policy. In the pediatrics group document, they talked about the importance of in-person learning and that there is already evidence of negative impacts on children because of the school closures in 2020. One thing that they do encourage us to do is to consider the mounting evidence regarding COVID-19 in children and adolescents, including the role they may play in transmission. Although children and adolescents play a major role in amplifying numerous influenza outbreaks, to date, this does not appear to be the case with COVID. Although many questions remain, the preponderance of evidence indicates that children and adolescents are less likely to be symptomatic and less likely to have severe disease resulting from the virus. In addition, children may be less likely to become infected and to spread infection. Policies to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 within schools must be balanced with the known harms to children, adolescents, families, and the community by keeping children at home. And I think that's what we've done here to the absolute best of our ability. One thing I would like to reiterate to everyone is our reopening plan does everything possible to mitigate risks. We don't eliminate them all. Right now, with the environment that we're living in, when you step outside of your door, you're at risk. And we're doing everything we can by our policies and by what we're doing to mitigate all the risks that we possibly can. We do know, one of the things we talked about in our many discussions was our teachers and our staff. While the pediatrics group and Harvard and everyone thinks kids are probably going to be okay with this, our question was our staff. Our question was our bus drivers. who may be in close proximity. And so we've tried to do everything we can to keep everyone as safe as possible. So let me just go through a few highlights of this. And if there are any questions, and I know that on our YouTube channel, there may be questions coming in from parents. The goal was to provide our students with a safe and healthy environment while here at school. And we operated under principles for our reopening, that we were going to implement the recommended safety protocols to the best of our ability per the guidelines from the Ohio Department of Health, the Ohio Department of Education, and some of the other documentation and guidance that we've come across over the last few weeks. We as a district will be transparent with the staff, parents, guardians, and community members with regards to the risks that exist when students and staff occupy our facilities. The district is going to place a high priority on protecting the health and safety of our students and staff. The district will collaborate with our school health experts, such as our school nurse and other service providers, to identify and meet the needs of our students. The teachers and all of the CCSD staff did receive a copy of this in your email this afternoon about 3:30 or so, if you haven't opened that up yet. So all of the details are here. For anyone watching, all the details will be posted via Facebook. This overall plan is just kind of the overarching directive for the district. Individual building plans will be coming out in the next week or two that are very detailed as far as what the expectations are in the individual buildings.
And also, Mr. Mullins, the principals will host Zoom parent office hours. So they've got those invites set out for next week so parents can participate in a meeting if you want some real specific details about your building.
Very good. For our staff, while our staff is in the presence of students or in situations that require face-to-face communications without 6 feet distancing, our staff will be required to wear a mask and/or protective shield during those work hours. The district is going to provide masks and protective shields when requested. Our staff will enforce the safety protocols for our students and staff during the work hours. Staff will self-monitor and report any symptoms, illnesses to their immediate supervisor. When staff suspects a child may have symptoms of being ill, they will send that child to the nurse for an assessment. All staff will follow the guidelines for maintaining safe distancing with masks while on school property and during work hours. So student health, our classrooms, we're going to make sure our classrooms are free of clutter and unnecessary materials. So a lot of the things you see specifically in the elementary buildings, they're not going to be laying around anymore. You're not going to see things hanging on the wall. We want to make it very easy for our custodial staff and people to come in and do deep cleans and very frequently. So classrooms will be furnished with sanitizing stations for students and staff. Our classroom setup is going to be set up to try to maintain safe distancing where possible. We know in some of the other district plans across the state that we've reviewed, we've seen distancing from 3 feet to 6 feet. It's been all over the board. We're going to try to get to 6 feet as much as we possibly
I
can.
think one of those documents, I can't remember which one it was because that was a couple hours ago, but one of them said 3 to 6 feet is
I think that was Harvard.
doable.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
certainly acceptable.
But we're going to go as much as we can. Our K2 building, if you've been in that building, you know that they are tables and not desks. And so all of those tables will have plexiglass shields separating the students. In the 3-6 buildings, our desks are going to be separated to maintain safe distancing at 6 feet. Classrooms with tables will have the plexiglass barriers installed on them. 7-12 buildings will have desks separated to maintain safe distancing. Students who are working from a table or in a lab area of the 7-12 building will maintain safe distancing, and the teachers' students will maintain safe distancing while working together in the classrooms. All of our classrooms will be sanitized on a regular schedule throughout the day. And here at the middle school, high school, there will be one-way hallways. We know that it's going to be impossible to keep kids in one classroom in the 7-12 building, as opposed to what we can do in the elementary building. So we're going to have one-way classrooms. We're going to stagger the way that kids change classes to try to maintain as much distance as possible. Now, as far as kids wearing masks, when they are on the buses, when they're being transported to school, masks are required. If a student does not wear a mask onto the bus, we will not transport that student to school. In the classroom or wherever in our buildings, safe distance cannot be maintained. The students will be expected to wear masks. Our hopes are that we will be able to safe distance in the classrooms or when with our plexiglass barriers to where they won't have to. We, of course, are recommending to the parents that their kids wear masks whenever possible. When they're in their hallway going to between classes, et cetera, they will be expected to wear masks.
And we provide masks. for
We will
anybody that
provide
needs
masks
them.
if the student doesn't have them. Yes.
So we are going to reinforce that they wear these masks.
Mhm.
So if they don't, what happens?
No, there's no
This is-
punitive if that's what, I mean, we can't punish kids for not wearing masks. We are highly recommending that they wear masks. But we can't send a kid home because they don't wear a mask. They will be required to wear them on the bus.
So they have to wear them on the bus. If they don't get around the bus. But if they come to school and don't wear a mask, they do.
Well, we're not requiring them in school. We're recommending them in school.
We're
On the bus,
recommending
they're
in the
required.
classrooms and requiring them when they cannot maintain the 6 feet,
Yeah.
5 to 6 feet distance.
I don't see how we're going to be able to maintain 6 feet in a classroom if we have 25 kids.
We are, I mean, those are coming out in the building specific plans next week. Yes, Mr. Kennard.
Specifically in the pediatric report, under 712 guidelines, it says universal face coverings in middle and high schools when not able to maintain a 6-foot distance for students and adults. So we're ignoring that guidance specifically, but taking everything else.
No, he just said that.
It says specifically, if you can't say 6-foot distance, it says it's universal. It doesn't say, well, maybe. I'm just wondering why we're not going to follow this if you put this out there as part of your guidance.
Well, we are going to follow that.
Yeah, he just said that.
Yeah, that's,
Universal, I'm sorry, Tom, it said it's universal, but I missed your last part. What, it's universal that you do what?
For students and for staff to wear face covering.
Okay, it's universal, that's what they say, it's universal.
They said it must be universal if you're going to be less than 6-foot distance. And I got to tell you, I've done the math on the square footage of our building and all the classrooms. And you're going to get 10 to 11 students. If you maintain 6-foot distance in a classroom, we need 100 classrooms to cover our population. We know that's not possible. So we're going to have 15, 20, 25 students in a classroom, and they're going to be 2 to 3 feet apart. There's no way you can avoid that. I mean, I'll be happy to look at the specific plan for my building, but this looks like we're addressing the needs of the students, but really not covering the needs of the staff, especially those of high-risk categories. I'm really concerned that a student who refuses to wear a mask, who I can't do anything about in the classroom, is going to bring it in from outside school because we have no idea what they do when they're home.
right,
They're going to bring
right.
the virus in here, give it to me, even though I'm wearing a face covering and a shield, because it's not 100% effective, and I'm going to die from it, or my wife's going to die from it, or I'm going to take it and give it to a family member, and they're going to die from it. I'm really concerned about this. I know you can't do away with that, but it doesn't look like we're taking it that seriously.
So Matt, would you like to address the classroom in the high school, middle school, as far as distancing? I know you've done a lot of measuring and,
Yeah, well, the conversation has bounced back and forth. We've read anywhere from 3 feet to 6 feet
Mhm.
distancing. 3 feet distancing is a lot more manageable, as Mr. Kennard has indicated.
Mhm.
6 feet would be very difficult. So 3 feet distancing, which we have read, and I have to find where I found that, would be a lot more doable. But certainly masks would be expected if we can't maintain whatever distance is recommended at the time of our return.
Well, when we were talking about the 2-1-2, at least with the 2-1-2, we had half our students, and it was more feasible to try to get the 6 feet distance. So what happened to the 2-1-2 idea? Why was school force overridden from that?
you like to address, Deb?
Yeah, as the summer went on and I was participating in more and more meetings with superintendents and some of the information coming out about areas and what the prevalence is of COVID in those areas, which is really kind of what the guidance is going to be. You have to make decisions based on how prevalent it is in your area. It's not that prevalent here, say compared to Dayton or Cleveland or Toledo. it just comes down to our kids need more than 2 days education a week. And by the time they come there 2 days, then they're out for 5 more days before they ever see a teacher again. And the reality of being able to give them additional 2 days is just not there. We can't hire more teachers to provide them online instruction, which we all know is not effective. And, as the summer has evolved, we have just followed it's the unofficial guidance that we've been given. And we believe that the guidance that'll come out of the Ohio Department of Ed and the governor, which is what he's aligning his to, is that, you have to do these things to the best of your ability, and that kids need to be in school. And, we can't make up for what they're losing. If we keep doing this, we're talking about years and years of an impact on students. That's detrimental, and we can't hold kids back forever. So that's where we're at. Many school districts are opening. Dayton's even opening, and they've got a higher prevalence than we do. But many school districts are opening, and that's the decision that we've made. If we have to regroup, we know between now and August 6th or 10th, things change every hour. We've adjusted this plan probably 100 times. And at this point, we feel confident that we're doing everything to the best of our ability. And if there are staff members out there that are, at high risk, there's options for them, there's a couple different ways, sorry about that can be addressed. You need to make an appointment with myself and Deb Longwell to go through what those options are if you happen to be someone that's in a high risk category.
Well, and Dayton is not, Chillicothe is not even remotely close to Dayton's size of.
Right.
And we've lost in Ross County since Friday 9 people.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds small, but for Ross County, that's not really that small. And it just makes more sense to, even though 212 is not the ideal, but it would make sense to ease back into it than to just throw them on. It's like we're slapping the wine in the face and everybody in the COVID thing and just saying, oh, it doesn't matter. We're just going to go back as if nothing happened.
Well, and I disagree with you. I think we have a lot of guidelines in place. We have gone to great lengths to make sure that we have all the supplies readily available. Aaron could address that. He has spent countless hours working on that. And parents will have the option to go online if they don't want to send their children back. But I think the feedback that the board and I are getting are parents want their kids to come back to school. And, we are a school district, we're a public school, and we're here to educate kids. And I truly understand what the concerns are. Again, if you're a staff member that's in a high risk category, come schedule a meeting and we can sit down and talk about those things to try to address those needs. I've had 2 come to me already, and I feel like we worked out something that works pretty well for them.
Sandina, and Debbie mentioned about parents contacting us. I have not had any parent say, I don't want my kid going to school. It has been pretty much unanimous. I know the other board members have heard from parents that they want their kids back in the classroom. And no, they don't. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Trust me, we're hearing that too. We're hearing that too.
Going back full force, it just seems so overwhelming for everybody to go back full force. And I understand that we're a school, we're educators, we're supposed to do that. But I also feel passionate about the fact that we all want to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. We all want to be here next year. And I think that there's a lot of people that are very uncomfortable with it. And I think it needs to be talked about because, kids, they say that kids are less susceptible or whatever, but the teachers are not kids. We're not kids. And we're the one that's going to be around everybody.
Well, I think, part of why we've got the requirements in there for the adult staff are that, adults required to wear the mask, make sure you're washing your hands. If you're sick, don't come to work. I know you guys are very dedicated to what you do, but a lot of you come to work sick. So if you're sick, you got to stay home. But, there's a lot of guidelines in there and, I feel like we put everything in place to make it easy for you to implement those guidelines and for yourself as staff members. And it's going to be really important to communicate with your staff or with your principal, to work with the building nurses if you've got concerns and work through those things. Natalie's very well connected with the health department. Natalie Herbert, that's the nurse. I don't think she's here. I don't see her. Has been working very closely with the health department and the Ohio Department of Health. And, she sat in our meeting last week and feels very confident that we're okay to do this and that we've got all the right things in place. And again, we open up in 2 weeks and something might change and maybe we have to, reevaluate what we're doing, but I don't know that for sure. We just don't know.
Out of curiosity, are the other county schools starting full force?
I don't know what the other county schools are doing. I am aware of many school districts opening, but I don't know what the county schools here are doing because we're not aligned to that ESC, so I'm not a part of those conversations they have.
It's my understanding they are.
I've heard from people that most are too, yeah.
It's my understanding they are.
Yes, Romaine.
I'm Romaine Soldier. I teach over at CIS, third grade teacher. I just want to make sure that everybody who's doing this is aware that there's not a teacher in this district who does not want our kids back in the classroom.
Oh, I know that. I know. Yep.
All of this information, we know. We're the feet on the floor. We're there every day teaching these children. We know children need to be in school. You'll not get an argument from any teacher in this district against that. Our concern is about health. That's what our concern is.
Absolutely. And the one thing I would say as we're going through this, Debbie said, this is probably going to be reviewed on a daily basis as we're doing it. We're going to see what's happening. Honestly, things could change before we even come back to class in August. It could be, circumstances force us to change direction. So it is going to be constantly reviewed. It's going to be constantly evaluated. Most of these districts like ours are starting to put out their plans because we can't wait on the state of Ohio anymore. We have to start making plans to do something.
I think one of the things that's going to be really important for staff, all staff, is to, do that symptom check every day. Take your temperature every day before you walk out the door. And if you have symptoms, report them to your doctor or report them to our nurse and don't come to work. It's going to be as important for you guys to follow this symptom checker as it is that we're asking our families to do for their kiddos. And a 6 feet distance when you're in buildings. And I know that's hard because you guys miss each other and you love to collaborate,
Very
but
hard.
I know that that's something we've been challenged with this summer when people are in the building. So you've got to, kind of remind each other, we've got to, wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart.
Are we temperature checking the kids?
We are not temperature checking the kids. That is not recommended that we do that. The guidelines that were originally sent out were that is on the parents to do that. One of the things that we're doing, and I understand your frustration, it would take hours to temperature check every child. And I don't think that's what you want to be doing every day.
I think and we'll see what ODH comes out with guidance. A lot of the guidance we're seeing is that temperature checks isn't even a very good indicator anymore, especially in kids. Yeah, Brenda.
One of my, said our calendar started early, and us not knowing how things are going to change. And I know that, like you said, before August 10th, you may change your mind 3 times because the governor may change and we have all that to look at. But it seems like if we jump in early, okay, and then we're jumping in full force, we're sort of putting ourselves in the same position that some of the restaurants and the bars and the beaches did in Texas and Florida and these places where they said, hey, we're going back full force, and just hoping that everybody will do what they're supposed to do. Well, not everybody did what they were supposed to do, then their cases fine. But if we go back with the 2-1-2, or every other day, if you take half on Monday, half on Tuesday, half on Wednesday, we can clean our rooms. We don't have a problem with cleaning our rooms. We would see kids every other day and they would have homework for the next day. Do something that lets us gradually get into it so that kids know, hey, this is the plan. You're going to be wearing masks and And if we're close to each other and we're dealing with 12 kids at a time, as we're teaching those protocols and going over routines, walking in the hallways and doing it safely, and just managing COVID, what it's going to look like, and managing how to keep everybody safe and doing it with half the class instead of the whole class. So since we're starting back to school, we can have COVID anyways, it seems like we could do that on a staggered basis to start out with, to get everybody back to their routine and do it safely.
I think one of the big challenges for our families is childcare, though, with that, because the childcare guidelines are still 9 per classroom. And we know that childcare in this area is still a big issue. And I think that's a huge challenge for our parents, and that's preventing them from going to work, which then is creating another hardship. There's a, the conversations are enormous trying to figure this out. It really was not a simple, oh, we're just going to do that. It was a lot of conversations, lots of moving parts. And I think the important thing is that we as adults have to make sure that we are symptom checking, we are wearing our mask, we're cleaning our hands, we're keeping our hands away from our face, and we're 6 feet distancing. And that if you think a kiddo is not well, send them down to the office so that the nurse can do the health assessment on them. And, I think if we do our part, and if you're not well, don't come to school. If we do our part, that's a big part of it. If you listen to the governor, that's what they're saying. If we just do our part, do those simple things, wash your hands, keep your hands away from your face, wear your mask, 6 feet distancing, that's a big part of it. And I think we just have to be very diligent about that. And, we've heard what our families have to say too. And it could change, but right now we have to make a decision because our parents need to know what to do. Staff need to know what to do, how to prepare. If you're a high-risk staff member, you need to come see me so we can talk about that. But I think it's,
And I think one thing, Aaron and I have been always kick around about every other day, something cool that we see online or something that we think about trying. And Aaron, I think one thing I know I think both of us have seen things like, basically they're like sneeze guards for teachers. Things that can be, clear plastic that, I think, let's look at maybe potentially procuring some of those if need be. So
Our maintenance, Larry and I are constantly looking for plexiglass.
Yep.
That is, hard to find.
plexiglass has been hard to find. Yep.
It's very expensive. So we are searching all.
Oh, yeah, for those in the audience, we need to use somehow the mic because they can't hear us on YouTube.
oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Hello. We're locating plexiglass and bits and pieces as we go through. And like Steve said, there's a lot of things out there. There are a lot of people, quite frankly, that are coming up with a lot of unique ideas in order to be able to try to combat the virus. We are trying to determine what is truly a safety precaution that is going to benefit our staff and our kids, not just a feel good. Some of the things that we've talked about, there are a lot of manufacturers, a lot of product supply companies that are contacting us about things like lights that can deter the virus, that it can eliminate, which we know is not true. That's not an accurate thing to say that it can do that. There are micro film that you can purchase to put on surfaces. But if you read some of the language, it also talks about the understanding of the virus itself and living on surfaces has changed since March.
Yeah.
A lot of this has changed because we're learning. But the reality is that everything that we read in regard to these guidelines, we're following. You mentioned Dayton is not like us, but one thing Dayton does is their average class students per classroom is much higher than ours, as a number of the districts that are returning full-time are. And again, I know that Tim mentioned the 6 feet, but we're also reading, if you read in the Princeton article and the pediatric article, and I watched several over the weekend, as did Debbie and a lot of us, there are guidelines that are universal, but they're universal from the standpoint that there is evidence to refute and rebut some of the data that initially came out. And a lot of those guidelines, Tim, have been consistent since the beginning of the virus itself, and other guidance has come out. So again, not to say that that's not accurate, but we spent a lot of time in meetings and like Debbie said, working with other districts with plans as well. We've got 30,000 masks on order. We've got 6 to 800 gallons of hand sanitizer. We'll have wipes. We have plexiglass. We have disinfectant spray. We bought equipment to sanitize rooms more efficiently, even though now we're hearing that, high service. We're putting plans in place, training for you as teachers, like you said, to help continue to be proactive in defeating the virus. And I'm going on here.
I'd say, Aaron, I'll tell you what, one thing that we are doing is we have a company looking at our HVAC systems.
We have the ability within our systems right now to do what's called a purge. And it's recommended that we do so 2 hours prior to the start of school and 2 hours after school is dismissed, that provides appropriate and true ventilation that will create, and we, HVAC systems are very complex. We have dampers that we can control the amount of outside air that comes in. We can do flushes. We're also looking at the purchase of filters for our current systems to be able to, when we do have, 1,000 people, 1,200 people in a building, how can we maintain that? And those are things that we're working with an entity called Plug Smart. They work with hospitals currently throughout the state. They're in Florida and they're also in Indiana, and they've worked closely with a number of hospitals that also help this. We haven't talked about transportation, which we really don't even want to get into because that's going to be a challenge.
That's a bigger challenge in classrooms.
Got it. But I can tell you, for those of the people that are watching, there'll be some information over the next couple of weeks that'll provide some guidance. So.
Speaking of transportation, would it be simpler or easier or
Yeah,
more
well,
doable?
Can
if
you
we
turn
had
the microphone?
Well,
I can talk loud enough for you.
They can't hear
I can use my teacher voice. When you were talking about transportation, if we did half the students, wouldn't that be more doable on the bus than it would be for full force?
Well, sure it would.
Obviously.
And so shouldn't we look at things like that too? And also, when you talked about the parents, you're hearing from parents. Can you give me a ballpark number of how many parents have voiced their opinion about things? Or a survey or anything?
I'd have to go back.
Yeah, I'd
I mean,
have to go.
we've seen a few, Debbie. We've had a ton call into the office.
Yeah.
I wish Jamie was here to
I've had
tell us how
about
many have
30.
called, so.
Okay. And I know that.
And we've sent out surveys all summer long. We've been sending
I know.
surveys out, and they're very loud and clear. Get my kid in school.
Just to give you an idea, the transportation survey that we put out last week, we've had 585 responses. And of those 585, 450 have said that they will use transportation. We put in there potentially 2 kids per seat. And it is still no one has said anything or emailed me or called.
So
to say they're not.
Are we still going to bus our high school kids?
That's in question.
That's in question. Because I know there are some parents upset about that.
So, and that's a great
Yeah,
question. The ultimate goal would be for us to be able to bus the exact same routes we bus now. That would be the goal. I don't know that can happen. We're going to find out more. The one thing that we are hoping for some guidance from the state on is transportation. And that's the one thing we think that they may actually give some fairly strong guidance to.
And I think if you look at all these documents, I've emailed you guys plenty of things over the summer. I don't know if you read them or not, but I've sent you everything I get. And transportation is the one hangup in almost every one of those documents because it's a small contained area. There's very little ventilation. That's the biggest challenge. And we are encouraging parents that it would be best if you could transport your child right now. We really are strongly encouraging that. And I think through the survey, you found quite a few parents are saying, I am going to transport my child. But our transportation stuff, we really can't finalize for another couple weeks. That's a very big task. And so that's going to take a little while to work through. And we really want to know what those guidelines are for that because
and for anyone listening or watching, if you did not receive an email about the final form survey about transportation, please call into the board office because we're trying to get as thorough of a review as we can of our transportation before we start setting routes and making decisions. So, call in, tell us how many kids you have, what grades they are they going to be riding buses, or will you be transporting them, or are they walkers? I mean, we want to know all of that. So,
Alyssa, do you have any
you got any questions, Alicia? Well, hold on. There's someone else had a question first.
I know
Sorry.
there's some
Yeah.
questions on the live stream.
Hi, I'm Tara Nicely. I have a first grader in the district, and I'm also a teacher at the high school. Talking about the plexiglass between the K2, will it be like a little cubby hole? And I also saw that they will
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay. So I also saw that they're going to be eating lunch in the rooms as well. So
You-
will they
you will be-
will they
the-
ever be out of the room
El-
or out of their cubby,
Yeah.
I should say?
So as we look at this, yes, elementary will eat lunch in their rooms, initially. Middle school, high school, we're looking at the possibility of spreading out into, 3 gyms, cafeteria, et cetera. But, and maybe at some point we can start doing that with the elementary. There is also the discussions, initially how we have set is no large group recess. Now, interestingly enough, I think it was Harvard or some of them said, no, you should go ahead and have recess.
I think they said go outdoors. I
Go
don't know
out,
if
but they said make
recess.
sure go outdoors. So we want to try to schedule something in smaller groups that will allow you to allow the kids to get outdoors or get into the gym, do something that gets them, instead of just being, like you said, in the little cubby hole.
Okay, and another thing, I think it was Matt that said he wasn't sure where the 3 feet came from. The pediatric article said 3 feet if students are wearing masks and
Okay.
6 feet if they're not.
Okay.
So, and studies are showing that masks are what is deterring this virus and up to 80%. So,
And I completely
That's-
agree. I get frustrated when I go into Kroger's or Lowe's or something, and I'm the only one who's got it on. Yeah. So trust me, I get it. And we want kids to wear them. We've also heard, and I'm sure you guys have heard from parents that no, I'm not going to make my kid wear a mask. Well, what can we do there? So
And we will strongly encourage parents to please, either ask us for a mask or send your kiddos in a mask. We're going to keep, reiterating why that's important to parents. Because we don't disagree. We would like to see them wear them, but 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds can be tough to, make them wear them, and you don't have time all day to police them. And you can't send them home. You can't punish them. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if we maintain a distance, I mean, if we can do that as much as possible, that works too.
Right.
So, and one of the things, so we're looking at a few different things when we talk about all of our tables. We can't do this at the primary school, but the intermediate school, some classrooms have tables. We're actually looking at what is a better solution, or what's a more cost-effective solution for us? Is it more cost-effective to build cubby holes with plexiglass, or go ahead and buy desks and replace the tables? So, we're looking at everything. We're
We
looking
have
at everything.
contacted SHP on desks and chairs,
Did, yeah.
additional desks and
How's-
chairs.
Yes.
Alicia Gray. And
Oh, hi, Alicia. How are you? I can see.
I'm here. I have 2 grandchildren that'll be at the middle school, and I have two at the high school, and 1 at the middle school. I also teach at the high school. But getting back to the comments with respect to symptoms, and if we have symptoms, then we should, especially with temperature check, we should stay home. I have to ask this on behalf of the staff. What about the attendance policy that has been put into place, where we have been strictly adhering to being off? I know in the 6.5 months that we had school for this past school year, I had 2 major respiratory infections, predominantly because of contact with kids. And so with that, my temperature is usually 96.7, 97.2. So if I'm at 98, if I'm 99, I'm at I have a fever. And so I have pre-existing condition. And I know that there are a number of staff who are concerned with that. They're also concerned with the attendance policy. But you tell us to stay home if we've got a fever. We don't know if the fever is just due to something else and not COVID. Is that going to be something that is going to be taken in consideration this year?
Well, with the attendance policy, I know there's a bonus attached to it, but I don't know how many people get disciplined and certified because you don't come to work. I don't think that happens very often. Like I said, if you're someone who is high risk, you just need to come and set an appointment with me, and we'll sit down with your principal and go through those things.
Steve and Debbie, would you entertain an MOU to change the language on the
Yes,
That we could write an MOU.
let's put something together. Yeah. Now, one thing I will also state when it comes to students, there is no more perfect attendance awards.
Yeah.
In our district. They're done. Never to come back, at least as long as we're board members.
And that's so kids who are sick will stay home. I'll say it.
I never understood that. That's the one thing I never understood was being a board member was the perfect attendance. You know a kid's sick at some point in the year.
Yeah.
You know they're sick.
Alyssa,
Alicia, do we have anything online? Wait a minute.
Mike?
Joe?
Microphone. You know, in the meantime, while the mic's coming down, I know that you folks as teachers know there are ways that you can get children to buy into, no matter what their parents are saying about wearing a mask. You can make them fun. You can draw pictures on them. You can use the rest of the kids in the class that are wearing masks against the one that doesn't want to wear a mask. So some of your points are very, very valid, but at the same token, we can work with that, I think.
Okay, so Alicia did say there was a couple questions. Why are some of the board not wearing a mask? We're maintaining our social distancing here and trying to talk a little more easily. And why are we moving forward without getting the ODE guidance? Well, we've got a pretty good idea what the ODE guidance is going to be. That's already been, Debbie's been in a lot of meetings with other superintendents. I've been in meetings with other board members. We've got a pretty good idea. I think you've heard Governor DeWine state there would be no surprises.
and that they're broad guidelines.
And they're very broad guidelines. We're not anticipating any real requirements.
And if he does come out with something that's not in our plan, we'll certainly get back together and address it.
We'll
you know.
absolutely adjust, yeah.
The plan is fluid. That's the main
Yeah.
thing to remember. The plan is fluid every day.
Go ahead.
Because something is changing.
There was one question about the inevitability of a positive test by a student or staff member, and what's the plan when that occurs?
So the plan is basically following the guidance and rules from the Ross County Board of Health.
And that's in the reopening plan. That'll be the full one that I have emailed all staff, but the full reopening plan is going to be posted on the district website under COVID-19. And in there, it's very specific about if a child has symptoms, what happens for staff and for students.
One thing I think to reiterate, to talk a little bit more about, as Debbie mentioned, and we've talked a little bit about an online option that's available for parents who don't, if they don't want their kids to come or if their kids can't come. The requirement we are placing on that is if you do register for the online services, you have to stay in a minimum of a semester. You can't go 3 weeks and say, hey, it's not bad there. I want my kid to come in. Well, sorry. That's just a pain for our teachers when, with kids coming in and out, online, offline. So that you're going to have to, you can sign up for a year initially if you would like, but at a minimum, you have to sign up for a semester.
Correct.
Do you have very much interest in that?
We
Yes, there
haven't-
has been actually. There was probably 12 to 15 per grade level.
It's closer to about 5 or 10 a grade.
Is it now down to 5, 10 per grade level? Okay.
And we will be sending that link out to parents, and they'll have till the end of July to register for that. So we don't really have an exact number right now because we haven't released the link to sign up yet.
Now, House Bill 164 and some other things have very clearly stated that, attendance will be taken in those classes. It'll be just like if a student, we've heard the stories about how many students actually logged in the spring in districts across Ohio. It didn't average 50%, I don't think. So am I right, Tim? I think it was ballpark.
2025.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. So, their attendance will be taken on this online. So Mike behind you there.
Do we have a plan for the kids that, if they do get COVID and they're out for, a couple of months and they miss school, do we have, I know we follow certain guidelines and teachers say they can make it up or whatever. Are we looking at maybe excusing that if they do have COVID or,
No, we would just treat them the same as any child that has a long-term illness. We would look at some kind of online or Zoom home instruction. Yeah, we'll address that on a
Yeah.
case by case basis, but yeah, we'll provide something to them. We're required to do that and we'll do that.
Okay, thanks.
Joe, back. And as Joe's working away back there, one thing, all of our buildings will have a quarantine room. So if a kid is sick, they're going to go to the nurse and they're going to be held there in the room until their parents come. They will not be put on a bus. They will have to be released to a parent or guardian. So.
And then they can't return until the parent has brought them in and they've been symptom checked with the nurse.
By the nurse, yes.
If a teacher does get COVID, is that considered workers' comp?
I've seen.
I think they've
I don't
ruled
think
on it
so.
yet.
I've seen both in the workforce so far. I think there were, I forget how many claims were made for the Bureau of Workers' Compensation, and they did approve a good number of them. So I'm not really sure on that. And honestly, the way the article stated is don't think the Higher Bureau of Workers' Compensation is completely sure how they're doing that. So yes, Alicia.
As a follow-up to what you were saying with respect to quarantining those students who are diagnosed with COVID, will these...
No, not necessarily COVID, who come in or sick, and we may have a temperature or something, they're going to be quarantined.
Okay, bottom line is, if the student is quarantined, will we know? Meaning, will teachers and staff be told that a particular student who's been in our classroom has been quarantined?
Oh, that if they do get COVID?
Well, that's going to be handled through the health department, and those notifications will come through the health department. If you read through that plan I sent you guys in the email, it discusses that. There's a lot of confidentiality stuff, but if a child is diagnosed with COVID, or even a staff member, at a point, that gets turned over to the health department to make those decisions about.
So we could be exposed and we would know it.
Well, like I said, if you look through what I sent you, it'll explain how the health department has to make that decision, what exposure is. Only the health department can make that decision. That's not something we can decide.
Alicia, and I don't know this for sure, but I would think with the contact tracing they're trying to implement, that yes, you would be notified if you had been in contact.
Well, and I think they define exposure they have a definition of
They
what's
do have, yeah,
exposure.
yeah.
If you saw a kid down the hall, who was it? Are you exposed? I don't know. But the health department has to make that decision. That is one thing we do know.
If a student misses, are we going to require a doctor's note saying that they were tested positive? Or are we just going to take the parent's word for it?
No, they have to come in, as I said earlier, and meet with the nurse and go through the symptom check, and they have to bring in a doctor's release. The nurse will handle any kid that comes back that's been sent home, suspected COVID or COVID. They won't be in your room until they've gone past the school nurse.
And when a child calls in sick, they have to talk to the nurse and they'll be able to do it online. They'll be very specific. Here's what's wrong. What are the symptoms, et cetera. So we'll have that information about a student when they just call off sick in general.
Yeah, through Final Forms,
Yeah.
there is a symptom checker in there, and there's an app for the parents to put on their phone. We're asking parents, if you think your kiddo's sick, to go on to Final Forms, fill out that symptom checker. If you can't get that app on your phone, or you don't want to go do that, you can call into the office. And if you call your kid sick in, either the secretary or the nurse will go through those symptoms in Final Forms and ask those questions.
Yeah, man.
All right, so there's a couple questions online. The one I answered online, but I thought maybe people would want to hear. What's the purpose of starting 10 days earlier? What is the purpose of that? That's the one question. And then, go ahead and answer that one.
Okay, so the one thing we looked at, and I know there were difference of opinions in the calendar. Initially we had, at our last meeting, we discussed the idea of being off completely in December when we thought there could be a new flare-up of this. Of course, now it's just been a continuous. So, but the one thing we wanted to do was build extra time into our calendar and into our schedule, knowing that it's important for kids to be in the classroom, in-person education. So we wanted to be able to, let's say at some point in time, let's say the month of December or January, we are closed up for a month. It flares up, closed up for the month across the state. Well, for the first 2 weeks, we won't have to do anything really. We'll be able to bring up our online, take our time, do everything right. and then online until we're able to come back in. And then we have these 2 weeks into the schedule that we can make up with the kids back in class. We felt the administration and the board felt it was important to have these 2 weeks. So we either did it like this at the beginning of the year, or we ran the risk of going through to school through the end of June.
Well, and
So-
we, in all honesty, tacking 2 weeks on at the end of the school year is not your best instruction time for kids.
It isn't.
And they have not released us from testing for next school year, and I don't know that they will. So this calendar allows us to maximize their instructional time with putting a 2-week time in there without tacking it on the end of the year where the instruction is really not as meaningful as if they're having it during the regular school year.
And can I also state,
Yeah.
one of the thoughts behind that was the fact that that 2 weeks would give us some time to get a plan in place, get the material that we need
Yep, exactly.
ready to get to students
Mhm.
and communicate with parents rather than, oh, we got a week or 5 days and we need to get the information to our students. So that's the one question. The second question that's come up several times on the chat is the fact that, or a question regarding sanitization of the building. Will we be hiring more staff to deal with the sanitization, the expected sanitization of our facilities? My apologies.
So Debbie, you
I think
want to, you and Aaron want to
I'll
handle
let
that?
Aaron handle that one.
Aaron?
He's been working with Larry.
Joe.
Aaron, if you could take your mask down, it'd be easier to understand if you take your mask down this little bit.
What Matt said. Right now, we are looking at adjusting custodial hours, and we think with some of the trainings that Public School Works is coming out with that can convey to teachers the cleaning of surfaces and disinfecting, the roles that the kids are going to play, and by maybe adjusting some of the custodial schedules. Now, all this is something we hope to have finalized. I think we've targeted July 10th or July 13th, that Monday, just in case July 10th and we're still on the fence about something. But we think that we can, through a combination of things, the manpower that we have, be able to disinfect, sanitize both during the school day and then do enough deep cleaning. Because if we're doing those things throughout the school day and we're all working as a team, our hope is a lot of those things that will need to be done in the evening, the custodians will focus more on cleaning, because disinfectant does not suffice for cleanliness. If we're eating in rooms and we're doing those things, we realize that there may be a need for more adjustment of hours. Now, the other thing that we've talked about is some of the monies that we've received. And again, I don't want, I feel the eyes looking on me about spending money for outside cleaning, but we have talked about.
Well, I was just going
potentially-
to say, if, we've talked about maybe on X amount of weekends out of the month, people will come in and do a deep clean, kind of like we did when we closed for the flu. I think the other thing, by not having kids in all the environments in the building, you're not having to worry about cleaning the cafeteria, for 3 hours a day, and the gym and those places. We're kind of keeping it into, certain areas, and that will help some. But I think, like Aaron's saying, the big piece is, and we've talked with OPSI about this, is changing the work hours for custodians so that they're in the building more when the kids are there, rather than these split where you've got a group while the kids are there and a group when they're not there. And then using some of the CARES money for extra cleaning on weekends, if that's what we need to do.
So I forgot to mention something, and I apologize for this, but one of the issues, of course, that we saw with online education in the spring was how many of our kids and families do not have internet access. Right. It's estimated, I think, Cleveland.com did every district in the state last spring, and they determined that 24.8% of our families did not have internet access. We are working with internet providers to look at the possibility of, for this school year, providing internet access to those families. And that will be paid for by the board. There's a definite possibility that we could have to go online for a period. With the way this is going, we want to be prepared for that. We don't want some kids to have an advantage because over kids that don't have access. So we are working on that. We're going to work on guidelines of who qualifies for that. But we think we've got a pretty good list of people who do need it. I think 500 and some people, 500 and some of our kids needed internet access. So we are looking to see if we can provide that for this school year.
And through the CARES money, we have ordered additional computers for that very specific situation, because a lot of those kids that have the internet don't have the computers that they need to do what they need to do. Like I said, there are so many things that go into this plan, all the backup things that you need to do. And these decisions were not just made, in 24 hours. They really weren't. They were lots of discussion, well thought out, and based on what we think we have the best information. And we know that on a time we might have to change some of them.
Probably since April, we started discussing.
Yeah.
What are we going to do when fall comes? So.
Yeah. Any other ones, Matt? Or Alyssa?
I mean, there's some specific questions regarding building levels, and I would just encourage people to look for Zoom meetings for each of the buildings, because we could go on all day about different specifics regarding each individual building. But at this point, I don't see any other questions that have come through that are not building level.
I would, as Debbie mentioned, for, some of our staff who have some worries, please meet with her, meet with your supervisors. We're going to do everything we can.
Yeah, we'll do
for
what
you.
we
We're going
can
to do
do
absolutely
within the
everything we can.
requirements that we have.
Yep.
But I don't know if you don't come to me.
One other thing, I guess, education is definitely the key to our parents, to our kids, to letting them know about how the disease is spread. And, we've learned that it's through spray admission, and that's why the masks are handy. But also, we need to let our kids and put it in notes somewhere and let everybody know that it can be on your hands. You literally can touch something that's on your hands. As long as you don't touch your eyes, your nose, and your mouth before you wash your hands, you're safe. Parents need to let their kids know over and over again, wash your hands, use the hand sanitizer, don't touch your eyes, nose, and mouth.
We plan on sending something out to all parents about, hey, here over the next month and a half or so, please reiterate, teach your kid, et cetera, et cetera. And the one thing, we're going to mitigate every risk that we possibly can. But the reality is, the way that this school building and every school in Ross County is going to stay safe and open is for the community to make sure that we stay safe and open, which is for the community of Chillicothe and Ross County to take care of themselves, to do the right things, to social distance. So when you can't social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands, don't touch your face. You do those things, our building's going to open up August 10th, and we're not going to have to use those 2 weeks. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. If a student in my class comes to school on a Tuesday and isn't feeling well and is maybe later that day or the next day diagnosed with COVID, would my entire class have to be quarantined?
That will be up to the health department to make those
That hasn't
decisions.
been decided.
Yeah, the health department has to make those decisions based on their definition of exposure and whatever investigation they do.
We actually did look into, are there set guidelines we can do? And we're told no, that's on a case by case basis. They would determine what they can, who they should contact, et cetera, based on what that child was in contact with when they were in the building. So,
and like I said earlier, Natalie has a very close relationship with the health department. She talks to them frequently.
Natalie's been fantastic.
Yeah, she's been great. And she talked through this. I think, Tammy, you were in that meeting. But again, that's on those guidelines, the full reopening plan that's emailed to all the staff, and then that'll be on the district website.
Yes, Tara.
So if we do have one of the students and we are forced to quarantine for the 2 weeks, would we have to use our sick leave for that?
I think the shorter answer is no to that. There's several different documents out there that talk about, what category, based on what situation does it fit into what category. And I'll get with our attorney and see if he can maybe put together an employee-friendly document so that staff can understand it. I think ultimately, though, that decision's not made by the staff person. It's going to be made, in cooperation with the nurse and your doctor and all of those things that have happened. But there's some very, very specific guidance on what is use sick time, what is not. So that's a great question, and I'll work with our attorney to get something in writing for everybody.
And that's, I think that's a good idea. I mean, this is something, you might have the flu and be out 3 or 4 days. You get this, you're going to be out 2 weeks. Okay. Or 3 weeks maybe, or even worse. So no, that's, I wouldn't think, Debbie's answer would be right. I think the short answer is no, you wouldn't.
Well, and if you're exposed at work, that's also should be a BWC claim as well. So one way or another.
In terms of the specials, art, music, phys ed, I think we need to get with our supervisors as soon as possible so that we can give parents the legitimate information as to how those classes are
Right.
going to run.
Yep.
Because especially with,
I think with music, their Cleveland Clinic has been charged with figuring out how music will be done in schools, and that guidance has not come out yet.
no, and also,
Natalie and I have been monitoring that. I'm sure you have too.
yes, the American Choral Directors Association with the Band Directors Association has sponsored research coming from Colorado State, and it's supposed to come out at the end of July. But I mean, in terms of like choir for both middle
Right.
school and high school, right now, that's not possible. I mean, there's just no way, even with a mask. NAFME says no indoor singing. And we're concerned about the viability of our groups and making sure that those programs stay in place. And I know that this district is extremely supportive of the arts programs. I am not saying that you are not, because no other district in Ross County has 8 music teachers. No, none of them. And we appreciate that. But we also are extremely concerned about what we are providing to our students. I've already had parents talk to me going, well, they're not going to be in Cavalites this year because, can't risk it. And I need to be able to tell parents as quickly as I can, we're coming back 5 days a week. This is what it's going to look like. I just want to make sure we have
But
that.
I think until Cleveland Clinic comes out with that guidance, we can't answer that question. We're as anxious to get that answer as you are. We really are. I know that Natalie and Matt are.
And they're supposed to be coming out with something that allows that to take place, isn't it?
The Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah.
They're supposed to put some guidelines together, but that
So,
is a tough one.
Mal, some of the specials, like at the primary level, are going to be difficult. We would still like to keep band at the intermediate level, because that's the entry feeder program into the middle school, high school. So yes, it's choir, exactly. That's the feeder program. So we want to continue that with however we're told whether we're able to continue it. Yep.
I wanted to apologize. I forgot to introduce myself before I spoke. I'm Tim Kennard. I'm a 30-year resident of just barely outside the city limits of Chillicothe, but I've been teaching for 25 years in the district. Just one other thing regarding that, we've been following all the science on the singing, especially because, my wife's a choral director. So, but everything they've said right now is singing doubles at least the distance that you can, as much as 20 feet now. It's a recent thing I just read. That singing in any kind of enclosed space is just not going to happen. I can't imagine there's going to be any kind of guidance that says that you can sing indoors. I mean, since they say you can't even be indoors in less than 6 feet without masks, that's what the current guidance is. We just don't see how singing's going to happen indoors. And all the guidance right now says, oh, just take your classes outside and spread them out. Well, when it's raining, snowing,
and that,
I mean, come on.
And everything you read now, and I understand that, they're saying that this really spreads when you're in, in close contact, et cetera. And I get that. And they said over an extended period, typically if you're they say if you're walking down the grocery aisle, you're probably okay, but, and I'm with you, that's still iffy. Singing is big. Where was it? Colorado, the choir? Baptist Church, somewhere, a choir, a couple back at the beginning of this had a choir practice, and most of the choir had it, yeah.
But some of that also wasn't just singing. They also had a fellowship time where they
Gotcha.
did all the things that choir people do.
Yep.
So, they don't know for sure if that was just the singing or
Right.
hugging.
No, yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Alyssa, any other questions?
Yeah, so staff and parents and any community member, if you go to the district website and go under COVID-19 tab, which is in the upper right-hand corner and is being updated right now, right, Jake? If you go there, 6:30, everything will be released, which it's 6:44. So, but if you go to the district webpage under COVID-19 on the homepage there, you can click in there and everything is in there. And that's where you will find all of your information, just as you did back in March when we started all this. Obviously, I think the principals have done a great job of getting things on their Facebook pages and on Class Dojo if you have that. And then Barb Coulter also posts everything on Facebook. For any parent that can participate in the Zoom parent meetings, I strongly encourage you to do that. We can hold up, Matt, to how many people on a Zoom parent conference? 500.
You can get
So-
500, yeah.
And
Yeah,
we've been
okay.
pretty successful in holding those meetings. So parents, if you can come to those, I think that's your best opportunity to actually get some of your real specific questions answered and be able to talk to your building principal.
I would encourage, this, first of all, board members, any other comments? As far as the thoughts on this opening, Bill, anything? So the one thing that that we would reiterate to staff, parents, anyone, if you have concerns, please let us know. Please contact us. Let us, it's going to take all of us working together to do this safely. But it's important that we try to do this safely, and it's important that we get these kids in the classrooms. So, we're going to do everything we can. We're going to leave no stone unturned to do it. And, please let us know if there's a stone we haven't left unturned. Okay.
And again,
Please
if
let
you're a
us know.
staff member and you've got concerns, you all have my phone number. I put it in every weekly update. You have my personal cell phone number. So all you have to do is call me or text me and we'll set up a meeting and, work through whatever your concerns are.
Jake, is on that COVID, are all the questionnaires about home instruction, online instruction going to be there for staff or parents to fill out if they're interested, Alyssa?
The link is included.
About who do I notify?
The link, they need to go to the link to register.
That's on the COVID page?
That link, it will be on the COVID page, but it's
it will
also in
be,
the
yeah.
parent memo that went out at 6:30.
Yeah, but we'll put that there. We'll emails.
Yeah.
We'll have all calls coming out to all the homes here over the next few days to remind you about the online education, transportation, et cetera. So we're going to try to hit as many people as we can.
And again, try to participate in those principal open office hours if you're a parent. And the staff also, your principals are sending out staff Zoom meetings for next week or the week after as well.
Is there anything else? Well, thank you very much for participating. We really do appreciate it. And with that, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hartmus. Second by Mr. Bonner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Jake, is there a way to just mute that so there's some conversation still happening?